I caught my maid comforting my disabled daughter. What happened next changed everything. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It started like any other day, the sun streaming through the window, casting beams of warmth in our home. But there I was, standing frozen at the doorway, my heart pounding like a drum. What I saw shattered my world. There was Maria, my maid, kneeling beside my daughter Lily. Tears streaming down my little girl's cheeks as Maria gently wrapped her arms around her. The sight was both tender and jarring, a moment that felt sacred yet so wrong. Lily, my brave, bold girl, had been through so much. Born with cerebral palsy, she struggled with every step and every word, navigating a world that often felt harsh and unyielding. As her mother, I've dedicated my life to ensuring she feels loved and seen. Yet, in that moment, I felt like I was a ghost in my own home, trapped between a surge of unspeakable emotions: fear, confusion, betrayal. Maria had been with us for years, a constant presence in our chaotic lives. She had a knack for making Lily laugh on her hardest days, and somehow, she always knew when I was on the edge of breaking. But to catch them in that intimate moment felt like crossing a line. I watched their silhouettes, Mariah's dark hair framing her face just right as she whispered something that made Lily smile through her tears. Was it solace? A secret? I felt my insides twist. What did Maria know that I didn't? The air felt thick with unspoken words. I strained to hear their conversation, my heart racing with each passing second. Suddenly, Maria glanced up, her eyes locking onto mine. The panic in her gaze was palpable, a silent plea for understanding. I stepped back, heart pounding, struggling to process what I had witnessed. Why did it make me feel so small and fragile? I didn't mean to intrude, but it was as if I had stumbled upon a private moment I'd never been meant to see. My instincts whispered that this was just the tip of the iceberg, that something deeper lay beneath the surface of our everyday lives. The air was suffocating, buzzing with tension as I wrestled with the pain of feeling excluded from my daughter's heart in a way I never could have imagined. Then, in a flash of movement, Lily turned toward me, wiping her tears away as she called my name, a fragile thread of hope and unconditional love that hung in the balance. But my thoughts were racing, spiraling into dark corners I didn't want to explore. What did this mean for us? What did Maria really mean to Lily? I felt my heart in my throat, the weight of uncertainty crashing over me like a tidal wave. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days that followed were like walking through a fog, each step heavy with the weight of unspoken words. I tried to shake off the encounter, but it clung to me, a shadow that followed me as I moved through our home. I found myself watching Maria and Lily with a scrutinizing gaze, looking for signs of a bond that seemed to threaten everything I held dear. With each laugh shared between them, I felt a dagger twist deeper, embedding insecurities I had buried long ago. No longer could I simply enjoy the sight of them together. Instead, I paled at the thought of what their connection might mean. Every moment of kindness Maria showed seemed magnified. When she brushed back Lily's hair while they painted together, I felt my heart gripped by an unfamiliar rage and helplessness. I had dedicated my life to my daughter, giving everything to ensure she experienced joy and love, yet there they were, two figures entwined in laughter that I suddenly felt uninvited to. Yet, there were flashes of hope that pierced through my anguish. One afternoon, as I sat in the kitchen, a soft knock broke through my spiraling thoughts. I opened the door to find Mrs. Thompson, our elderly neighbor who always had a warm smile and an apple pie ready. Her eyes twinkled with genuine affection as she handed me the pie, a gesture that felt like a balm for my aching heart. "I thought you might need a little sweetness in your life," she said, her voice kind and knowing, hinting that she sensed my struggle. The pie sat on the counter, a symbol of our connection to the world outside my chaos. So much love in a simple act. I felt a flicker of gratitude for the small kindness. It reminded me there was still warmth, still laughter to be shared, even amidst painful uncertainty. Yet as I ate a slice of the pie later that evening, I couldn't shake off the gravitational pull towards my daughter and Maria, who were giggling together in the living room. The echo of their joy twisted like a knife in my gut. I forced myself to push the pie away, the sweetness soured by my simmering doubts. How could I cage these feelings of jealousy and betrayal? Shouldn't I be glad Lily had someone so nurturing by her side? The following morning, I resolved to confront the problem head-on. Somewhere inside of me, a voice told me Maria was not to blame. Yet my heart sang a different tune, one of self-preservation and fear. I gathered the courage to approach Maria after Lily was off in her art class that morning. "Can we talk?" I asked, my voice strained as I closed the door behind me. Maria nodded, her eyes filled with trepidation, and I could see that the weight of our shared secret pressed heavily on her. "How long have you?" My voice faltered as I searched for the right words. "How long have you been close to Lily?" The question hung in the air, the tension palpable between us. Maria took a deep breath, her gaze dropping to the floor. "Lily is special, and I have a connection with her that I never expected," she admitted. "When I see her smile, it makes me feel alive. I thought you'd understand." Her words danced dangerously close to the truth, the beauty of the connection they shared morphing into something I loathed, a creeping jealousy wrapping around my heart. Was I losing my daughter to another's love? "But I don't want you to be her crutch," I said, desperation lacing my tone. Maria's eyes flashed with hurt, and for a brief moment, I saw the vulnerability that lay beneath her strong exterior. "I'm not here to replace you. I care for Lily, but you are her mother. I would never want to take away from what you have." In that moment, something shifted within me, a flicker of understanding igniting as I saw how fiercely Maria protected Lily's spirit. As if sensing my turmoil, Maria took a step closer, her voice softening. "You are her world, and I'm just here to help her shine brighter." But alongside that sincerity were shadows, unanswered questions swirling around us like dark clouds. Yet before I could respond, a loud crash from the artwork room pulled us back to the reality of our lives. My heart raced as I dashed to see what had happened. The sight that greeted me was a tableau of chaos, Lily sitting on the ground clutching her leg in pain, the drawing supplies scattered like fallen stars around her. Maria was kneeling beside her, urgent concern etched on her face. The light in my daughter's eyes flickered as she met my gaze, the mix of fear and surprise stark against her tear-streaked cheeks. I felt my breath hitch in my throat. Was this the moment that pulled us all together, rekindling the love between mother and daughter, overshadowing everything else? But as I knelt beside them, skimming my fingers over Lily's knee to assess the damage, it was too late. Amidst the emotional battleground of loyalty and love, I could see the bond one feared most. Every tender word exchanged, every time I felt left in the cold, all cemented the truth. My heart was splintered, the realization I dreaded now standing before me, heavy and inevitable. Could I confront the fear of losing my daughter's heart while navigating the treacherous landscape of my own emotions? That question echoed hauntingly in my mind as I clasped Lily's hand, her gaze warm and trusting, leaving an unsettling question to linger: would I be enough? The days that followed the accident felt surreal, as though time had halted, echoing with unanswered questions and unrelenting doubt. I found myself enveloped in a heavy fog of confusion, each moment a clash between my role as a mother and the undeniable emotions that continued to swirl around Maria's presence in our lives. Lily's leg healed, but her laughter seemed to resonate with a newfound joy that I feared stemmed from Maria's influence. Each time I watched them together, the unease tightened around my heart like a vice. Just that morning, I had returned from a run only to find them outside, painting the fence with vibrant colors under a sun that felt too bright given the shadows darkening my thoughts. The joyousness that radiated from them left me feeling abandoned on the sidelines of their happiness, watching as they created a world in which I felt I no longer belonged. I busied myself in the kitchen, the rhythmic motions of chopping vegetables and stirring the pasta a temporary distraction from the turmoil within. My heart ached as I recognized the paradox of jealousy and fear, the mixture of anger at Maria for filling the void I feared losing to her and guilt for resenting the joy my daughter derived from her presence. I watched them through the window, Lily's giggles mingling with Maria's gentle encouragement, their intimacy forging a bond one struggled to accept. That evening, as we gathered for dinner, I found myself lost in the chaos of the moment. Lily chatted excitedly about their art projects, and Maria chimed in with stories of her childhood that made Lily's eyes widen in delight. But beneath the surface of merriment, my heart hammered with a desperation to reclaim my daughter's attention. I couldn't let this slip away. Maybe we could have a paint night together, just the two of us. I heard myself say, even as regret laced my words. The moment hung in the air, a fragile invitation drenched in possessiveness. Lily's face lit up with excitement, but before she could respond, I noticed the light in Maria's eyes dim slightly, a microsecond of recognition of my intent before she forced a smile. That sounds wonderful. But I hope you don't mind if I join. I can help you both find inspiration, she offered, a kindness enveloping her words that felt like salt on an open wound. That I nodded, forcing a smile painted over my unease. Of course, the more, the merrier, I replied, but inside I wrestled with the bitterness of shared moments that now felt like a threat rather than a blessing. Weeks passed, and while Lily and Maria flourished in their camaraderie, I struggled to find common ground with either of them. One night, after an exhausting day, I sat on the floor of Lily's room surrounded by her artwork, crayon scribbles, paint spills, and bright colorful displays of childish creativity. But instead of warmth, I felt only an overwhelming sorrow in my gut. I was losing the connection I cherished and had fought for since her first breath, and each shared moment between them seemed to deepen the chasm within me. My thoughts were disrupted by the sound of soft shuffling at the doorway. Maria stood silhouetted in the hall, her expression somber yet inviting. "Can I come in?" she asked, her voice a gentle balm against my turmoil. I hesitated, unsure if I wanted to invite another wave of conflicting emotions into the sanctuary I had built in this room. But exhaustion overwhelmed me, and I nodded. As she stepped inside, I noticed the way the dim light cast shadows on her face, the tension in her posture evident. "I think we need to talk," she began, her gaze searching mine for understanding. "What is there to talk about?" "You and Lily." My voice cracked, the jealous pang spilling out before I could suppress it. Maria sighed, the weight of our awkward silence pressing down on us. "This isn't about you losing Lily to me. I promise." Her earnestness flared like a flicker of hope amidst the tempest. "I care for her, yes, but I see you. You're fighting a battle within yourself, and it's tearing you apart. I don't want that for her or you." How could she so clearly see through my facade? The fear was palpable as I met her steady gaze, flooded with emotions I was reluctant to address. "I don't trust that you won't take her from me," I admitted, my heart pounding painfully. You fit into her life so seamlessly. You don't have to trust me," Maria said softly, "but you absolutely have to trust yourself. You're an incredible mother, and Lily adores you above anyone else. No bond that I create with her can nor should replace what you two have." Her words hung in the air, reverberating with an unfamiliar truth that I had fought so hard to ignore. But just as I began to let my walls falter, a sudden, urgent knock at the door startled us both. With an anxious heart, I opened it to see a distraught neighbor, panicked and breathless. "Have you seen Lily? She was supposed to be at home when I dropped off dinner, and she's not here." A cold grip of fear embraced me. The chill in my spine cascaded down into my gut. "What do you mean she's not home?" I felt Maria's hand grip my shoulder tightly, anchoring me as my mind spun with dread. "Stay calm. Well, find her," she urged, squeezing once before she dashed out behind me into the night. In that fraught moment, the shadows I had fought so hard to contain surged forth like a torrential flood, washing away my resolve. The fear of losing Lily was a monster lurking just outside the corridor of my heart, waiting to pounce with every stretch of silence. What if I had pushed her away to the edges of my world? What if I lost my daughter forever because of the demons I had allowed to thrive? The question rang in my head as we rushed into the night, desperation thick in my throat. Would we find Lily, or would this be the moment that shattered everything? The streets were a blur of shadows and frantic motion. Maria and I called out Lily's name, the sound resonating in the stillness around us, reverberating with the weight of our fear. Each unanswered call elicited a fresh wave of panic that threatened to consume me whole. I felt lost, adrift in an ocean of worries. I had never before dared to voice the fear of not being enough, of losing my child to the very person who seemed to bring her joy. Where could she be? I gasped, my breath catching in my throat as we circled the nearby park, the creaking swings swaying eerily in the night breeze. The vivid vision of Lily's laughter filled my mind, a haunting echo now, a cruel reminder of the happiness that felt so far beyond my reach. She's probably just exploring, Maria said, her voice steady despite the tremor I could hear in it. Kids do that when they think no one is watching. We just have to stay calm. Her optimism felt like a fragile thing, a flickering candle against the growing storm of despair within me, but as minutes turned to what felt like hours, anxiety warped into an ugly shadow. I fought to constrict the endless threads of guilt weaving through my heart. Had I been so absorbed in my own fear, that I had neglected to see her needs? Had my jealousy poisoned the very connection I had sworn to protect? We reached the edge of the park, the blanket of shadows coiling around the surrounding trees, and with every fleeting moment that passed, I clenched my fists tighter, a primal need to find her surfacing within me. Just as I opened my mouth to call out again, the sound of a small voice pierced through the dark, bringing both relief and dread. That I am right here. My heart soared but was instantly drowned in dread as I turned to the rustling bushes. There stood Lily, her cheeks flushing pink under the moonlight, and in her arms, she cradled a small, quivering puppy. Lily! Thank God! I rushed forward, enveloping her in my arms, the heat of her small body grounding me amidst the chaos. I felt Mariah's presence behind us. The soft way she approached was a soothing balm in my storm. Mom! Look what I found! Lily exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with glee, unaware of the maelstrom of emotions raging within me. The puppy yelped softly, its fur tangled and bedraggled. While my heart swelled at the sight of my daughter's joy, an unmistakable coldness gnawed at my insides. Would the cutting edge of my possessiveness triumph yet again? Where did you find it? I asked, my voice unsteady as I knelt to get closer, the conflict roiling beneath my surface. It was lost. Lily beamed, holding the trembling pup out to me. I couldn't just leave it. I glanced at Maria, who was kneeling beside us. She shot me a gentle smile, a silent reminder that my daughter's kindness shouldn't be perceived as a threat. Yet when I looked back at Lily, all I could see was a mirror reflecting everything I feared losing. Lily, I started, the tremor in my voice betraying my desperation. We can't just keep it. It's please, Mom. We can help it. She interrupted, her tone shifting abruptly, sensing my hesitation. Just like how we can help each other. I love you, and I love this little guy too. Don't you want to save him? Her innocent request struck me between the ribs, an echo of my own pleas surfacing. Did I want to raise a wall between us, one constructed from fear and misgivings, or could I embrace the uncertainty ahead? As I held the puppy, its little heart racing under my palm, I felt the tremors of doubt clawing at my resolve. Perhaps Maria was right, our lives could intertwine without losing what made them beautiful. Let's take care of him, together, I finally said, glancing at Maria, who nodded in silent agreement, her eyes softened by understanding. The weight began to lift slightly, a fog dissipating with the dawn of hope, but just as relief swelled, a distant wail of sirens sliced through the night. It was a horrible noise that clawed at my insides, and the glow of flashing lights flickered lazily through trees in the distance. Mom, what's that? Lily's voice trembled slightly, her eyes wide, innocence blurring at the edges. That I didn't have time to worry about the answers then, but dread wrapped itself around me like a shroud. As we stood, frozen amidst the chaos, the sirens grew closer. It suddenly felt all too clear that this night would hold revelations far beyond the puppy. "Let's go home," Maria said softly, her hand gently resting on my back, but the quiet urgency in her voice stirred something primal within me. I sensed a storm brewing on the horizon, one that had little to do with our immediate crisis, one that could unravel everything. Heart racing, I took Lily's hand and led the way back, but as we turned toward the distant, chaotic sounds, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The moments we fought to stitch together were delicate, and fate had ominous plans that I could scarcely fathom. As the lights glared brightly ahead, I wondered what lay beyond them, what truths I would have to confront if our lives spiraled into something unrecognizable. The night felt heavy as we made our way home, the sirens fading but leaving an echo in my mind. I clutched Lily's hand a bit tighter, squeezing it gently, as if my grip could ward off the encroaching darkness that lingered just outside the glow of our little bubble. I could feel Maria walking closely beside us, a steady presence, yet even her warmth did little to quell the tremors of unease that danced through my heart. As we entered the apartment, the familiar scent of lavender lingered in the air, Maria's favorite spray for calming the spirits. I inhaled deeply, trying to latch onto that sense of safety, but the shadows of the night clung to me. I gently released Lily's hand and watched her bound to the living room, her delight over the puppy bubbling to the surface again as she set it on the floor to explore. The little creature sniffed the carpet hesitantly, its tiny body shivering with uncertainty. "Let's name him," Lily said, her eyes bright with excitement. "How about Lucky?" I forced a smile, knowing this was her way of healing after the turmoil. "Lucky it is," I replied, feeling the weight of each word as I hid my own fears behind a mask of support, but as I watched my daughter crouch down, her fingers tangling gently in Lucky's fur, my heart twisted uneasily. I noticed her attention drift from the puppy to something else outside the window. I followed her gaze, the reflection of our warm apartment contrasting the darkened street below. There, illuminated by a flickering streetlight, stood a figure, shrouded in layers of thick clothing that looked too big for them. "Mom, who is that?" Lily asked quietly, a note of concern creeping into her voice that I squinted, trying to make out the person in the shadows. "I don't know, sweetheart." My tone was more curt than I intended, as my mind raced ahead, constructing stories around this stranger who might be hiding away from the world or waiting for something or someone. Maria stepped closer to me, her brow furrowed with curiosity. "We should check it out. It could be someone in need." I knew she was right. With a deep breath, I grabbed my jacket from the rack. "Are you coming, Lily?" I asked, trying to mask the uneasiness that churned in my stomach like a violent sea. She hesitated, glancing between Maria and me, uncertainty flooding her features. I felt the stirrings of fear manifest again. Had her joy been too fragile, so easily disrupted by the unknown? "Can we take Lucky?" she asked, her grip on his fur tightening. "Yeah, of course," I said, trying to keep the reassurance steady in my voice. The thought of venturing into the night echoed across my mind like an ominous chant. A specter of dread looped around my heart, but for Lily, I had to step into the darkness again. We stepped outside, enveloped in the cool night air, and I felt each step as the whisper of the unknown caressed my skin. The figure remained, oblivious to us as we approached, lost in a world all its own. I could already feel the tension of the moment tightening around my throat, but as we got closer, I realized it was a girl not much older than Lily, huddled on the cold ground, her dirty hands cupped around her knees. "Hey," I said softly, trying to coax her from her solitude. "Are you okay?" She looked up at me, her eyes wide and glistening under the light. "I'm fine," she mumbled, but the way her body curled inward spoke volumes. "Are you sure?" Maria chimed in, kneeling beside her. "It's really cold out here. Would you like to come inside?" The girl hesitated, a flicker of fear in her eyes. I could feel the weight of both of our gazes, two worlds colliding. "No, I can't," she replied, her voice softer now, frail as a withering leaf. "Why not?" "We can help," I pressed gently, trying to break down the barricade that surrounded her. In that moment, something shifted in her expression, a vulnerability unfolding like the first bloom of spring, shy and unsure. I don't want to be a burden," she whispered, her words brushing over my heart like a lonely breeze. "No one is a burden," Lily chimed in, and I could see her innocence beaming through the shadow of uncertainty. "We're friends, right, Lucky?" She held the puppy up, and it yapped in agreement, innocence intertwining seamlessly with compassion. The girl's eyes softened, a faint smile forming, but lingering hesitation clouded her expression. "You don't know me. You don't know what I've done." The world seemed to still around us as those words hung pregnant in the air. I felt an icy grip pierce my heart. What horrors had she endured? What decisions had driven her to this dark corner? Before I could respond, Lucky wriggled free from Lily's grasp and leaped towards the girl, oblivious to her fear. He found a warm spot beside her, paws resting gently on her knee. In that innocent moment, she appeared to reconsider, her defenses lowering ever so slightly as she gazed down at the impromptu furry companion. "Please," I said slowly, kneeling beside her. "Whatever it is that's happened, it doesn't define you." I glanced back at Maria, gauging the solidarity in her eyes. It was a sense of hope, however fragile, that we could be her light through the shadows. But just as the girl seemed on the cusp of letting us in, a sudden rush of footsteps echoed behind us. My heart lurched. I turned, dread pooling in my stomach, instinctively shielding Lily from whatever chaos awaited us. "Get away from her." A voice barked from the shadows, making every instinct scream for us to flee. The words landed like stones, heavy and unforgiving. That I stood frozen, my heart hammering in my chest, as the confrontation unfurled like a tightening coil, an unknown danger eclipsing the glimmering hope we had barely begun to nurture. The girl shrank away from the voice, eyes wide with fear, but I couldn't move. I had to protect Lily. Protect everyone. In that moment, the world began to collapse around me, a renewed storm carrying the weight of unseen conflicts crashing in, and I felt the very foundation of certainty begin to slip away, realizing this night was far more than a simple act of kindness. It was a precipice that could change everything. The footsteps thundered closer, sharp and harsh against the quiet of the night. I felt panic clawing at my throat, tightening my grip on Lily's hand, my efforts to shield her feeling woefully inadequate. I wanted to scream, to tell this intruder to leave us alone, but my voice felt trapped inside, drowned out by the palpable tension in the air. The girl beside us flinched, her body curling even smaller as if she could disappear into the shadows that surrounded her. "Please don't," she murmured, her voice trembling. "Get away from her." The voice roared again, menacing and filled with accusation. I turned slowly, my heart racing, to face a young man, his face partially obscured by a hood. But even the dim light illuminated a flicker of something darker in his eyes, a storm of rage and desperation. "She doesn't need your pity," he continued, stepping closer. "Who are you?" I managed to say, surprised by the steadiness of my own voice amidst the tide of chaos. "Just someone who knows her," he spat, staring at the girl with a mix of bitterness and protectiveness that made me uneasy. It was the undertow of a battle unspoken, a history written in scars that I could only guess at. "Please, just leave her alone," I pleaded. "She needs help." He scoffed. "You think you can fix her? You don't even know her story, what she's done." That accusation sliced through the air like a knife. The girl's head hung lower, every word he spoke wrapping around her like chains, pulling her deeper into despair. "No, please," I said again, desperate to shield her. "You're wrong. No one deserves to be judged like this. Stop." The girl interjected, her voice suddenly fierce as she lifted her head to meet my gaze with wide, vulnerable eyes. "I can't, maybe I don't deserve help." My heart plummeted, the weight of her statement crashing into me, echoing the fragments of my own doubts that haunted my mind. "That's not true. You're not defined by your past," I implored, feeling that fierce protective instinct surge within me again. But as my words hung in the air, a silence enveloped us, almost tangible. Lily shifted beside me, her small form a reminder of innocence caught in the undertow of this moment, her bright eyes wide, worried. I glanced down at her, and something inside me cracked. I had wanted to shield her from this world, from its cruel judgments, yet here we were, wading deeper into it. Suddenly, a gentle bark pulled my attention back to the rug of fur that still sat by the girl, tail wagging in happy oblivion to the darkness around us. Lucky. In a world of uncertainty, this little creature was a ribbon of light shining right through the gloom. I knelt down next to him, stroking his fur as he licked the girl's hand, offering comfort in a way I found so incredibly pure. The young man hesitated, his expression flickering between anger and concern, as if his resolve was gradually crumbling under the weight of a more profound truth. In that charged moment, something shifted in the stillness of the night, like a quiet surrender. "Jenny!" he exclaimed, using the girl's name with an urgency that betrayed years of complicity. "You shouldn't be here." With the revelation, the very air around us shifted, bringing with it the specters of old mistakes and regrets. Jenny gazed up at him, fear and confusion marring her features. "Why do you care?" "Because I do," he replied fiercely. "You're not a burden to anyone, especially not to this family." I took a breath, my heart aching with recognition. He knew her, but did he know what lay beneath her scars? My mind spun, trying to piece together the fragments of their strange connection when the night air thickened with despair, an unexplainable gnawing at the back of my mind. It felt as if we stood on the edge of a hidden truth, each of us mere travelers on divergent paths that suddenly converged. A car door slammed in the distance, punctuating the silence. My heart froze. The mix of emotions wound through me, fear for Lily, worry for Jenny, and bewilderment at the unseen forces arrayed against this fragile moment of connection. "Let's just go," the young man urged. "You don't have to be here for this." My instinct screamed for me to pull my daughter away, to escape this unexpected confrontation, but then there was the flicker of hope, the bond forming between the girl and Lily, kicking at the door of vulnerability in spite of everything, whispering that maybe, just maybe, healing could emerge from the wreckage. "Wait," I called out, heart pounding. "Jenny, please don't go. We can help you. Just talk to us." But before I could finish, the shadows shifted again. A car pulled around the corner, lights sweeping across our little group, breaking the moment's fragile intimacy. The young man's expression morphed into one of panic. "We need to go, now." In that instant, time fractured. I knew we were all standing on the precipice of a crossroads, where paths collided and it threatened to send all of us tumbling into darkness. The dichotomy of choices loomed heavy, to reach for that flicker of hope or to let it slip away forever. And as they turned to escape, I felt an unnerving instinct to follow, the sheer urgency urging us closer to a truth I was not yet prepared to face. Would I allow fear to dictate our fate, or would I dive headfirst into the abyss, clutching tightly to the strands of compassion? I didn't have time to answer, and then it arrived, a single piercing thought that shot through me like a lightning strike. What if I turned the wrong way, not knowing what awaited us in the shadows? I stood in disbelief as the car's headlights swept over us, illuminating the raw edges of reality. Jenny's eyes widened, the panic in them mirroring my own as she exchanged a frantic look with the young man. The last fleeting shard of connection we had created threatened to shatter under the weight of immediate danger. "Please," I urged again, my voice almost a whisper, a plea hanging in the air that felt inadequate against the backdrop of uncertainty. But before I could summon the courage to take a step toward them, they turned on their heels, the shadows swallowing them in haste. "Lily!" I called, desperate to regain control, to shield her from this collapsing moment that felt fraught with implications I couldn't quite grasp. But she hesitated, her small hand still grasping the scruff of Lucky's neck, her eyes searching for something beyond the panic. "It's okay," she whispered softly to the dog, as if she could somehow reassure him that we were all going to be fine. "Stay with us, Lucky." The tension in the air felt electric, alive with unspoken words and emotions that no one dared to reveal. I yearned to run after Jenny and the young man, to hold their stories in my hands and piece together the fragments, but my instinct screamed for safety, for protection from this uncertainty that wrapped around us like an insidious fog. And then it happened, a moment of grace amidst turmoil. A figure emerged from the car that had pulled up, a woman dressed sharply in a coat that glinted under the fluorescent streetlights. I recognized her instantly, Mrs. Collins. our neighbor. The unfathomable truth behind her sudden arrival washed over me, and my heart quickened. She had always been an unwavering source of strength in our world, but what was she doing out here? "Everything all right?" she called out, her voice steady, even as she surveyed the scene before her, concern etched on her features. I wanted to scream that nothing was all right, that we stood on the brink of something fraught with peril, yet the gentle kindness in her gaze reminded me of the flickers of hope we desperately needed. "Just a misunderstanding," I managed to utter. "But everything's fine." A tense silence settled over us. Mrs. Collins stepped closer, her presence grounding like an anchor amidst the tide of chaos. "You know I'm always here if you need anything," she said softly, a warmth radiating from her. "Life has a way of throwing challenges at us when we least expect them." I forced a smile, yearning for her words to hold the power to bind our fractured reality, to soothe the cracks that threatened to break open the moment. Yet behind me, the shadows beckoned, calling me back to the truth I couldn't escape. What had Jenny endured? And what secrets lay hidden under the surface? Before I could respond, the young man Thomas, I'd heard him call himself, returned, Jenny just a step behind, the panic in their expressions still vivid but mixed with something new, determination. "She's coming with us," he declared, his voice a command that filled the night air with unexpected certainty. "What? No!" I protested, instinctively taking a step forward to block their path, a barrage of emotions surging wildly: fear, protectiveness, and yet, an undeniable flicker of hope. But the young man shook his head firmly. "We can't go back. I won't let her be hurt again. You don't understand what she's been through." There was a moment of silence as we all processed the weight of his words. Jenny stood next to him, trembling but resolute, her gaze steady as she faced the unknown, looking more like a warrior than a girl caught in turmoil. My heart ached as I recognized the unyielding bonds of those who had endured pain together. My maternal instincts clawed at the back of my mind, warning me as the necessity of protection wrestled with the realization that Jenny needed to be free, perhaps more than she needed to be safe. "Lily," I whispered, wrapping an arm around her small shoulders, trying to shield her from this volatile mix of heartache and courage. "Stay close to me," but she wasn't looking at me, her eyes were locked onto Jenny, who met her gaze with an urgency that spoke of shared understanding. "You can help me," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper as she stepped forward. "Help you? How?" Lily asked. "I don't know," Jenny replied, a tremor in her voice. "But I need friends. I want to learn how to be okay." I felt the world shift under my feet as I silently battled with my own heart, torn between the overwhelming urge to protect my daughter and the realization that wounds could only heal with connection. Kindness could bridge the abyss of hurt, however deep. Just as I opened my mouth to respond, the darkness surrounding us thickened with anguish. The sound of footsteps crept closer again, deliberate and heavy, a reminder that danger wasn't necessarily confined to our fears. With every beat of my heart, it felt as if that door, which hung precariously ajar, threatened to slam shut. "Go, now," Mrs. Collins urged, her voice sharp as she gestured toward her car. "This isn't a safe place for you. All of you." The urgency in her tone sent a wave of alarm through me as I glanced back at my daughter, whose bright eyes shimmered with courage that belied her age. "Okay," I breathed, though doubt rattled through me like a chilling wind. "Okay, let's go." But before we turned to follow Mrs. Collins, one last moment stole my attention. Thomas reached for Jenny's hand, intertwining their fingers with an unshakable determination, as if they were bound by a promise forged in the fire of their shared pain, and just like that, we plunged into the night, into the unknown, carrying our tangled stories through the dimly lit streets, where shadows danced with uncertainty and the flicker of hope fought valiantly against despair. But as we climbed into the car, the weight of something unspoken loomed over us, a chilling reminder that truths left unshared often strain against the edges of our hearts. And amidst that budding alliance, I sensed the secrets still hidden from view, secrets that could unravel everything we had fought for. A single question echoed in my mind, louder than the thundering footsteps that had first drawn us together: what if the truth was far darker than we had yet to anticipate? The moment Mrs. Collins turned the key in the ignition, a low rumble of the engine erupted into the stillness enveloping us. As we pulled away, I could feel the weight of uncertainty settling in like an unwelcome passenger. The muffled sounds of the night receded behind us, but the sense of foreboding lingered, like a shadow woven into the fabric of our escape. In the back seat, Lily had nestled close to Lucky, her fingers tangling in his fur as if drawing comfort from the warmth of his body. I cast a sideways glance at Jenny and Thomas, both of them so close together, sharing stories with their tired eyes that held far too much for their young years. I could hear only fragments of their conversation, hushed voices, urgency dripping into the silence like an open wound. They spoke of places that turned light into darkness, of how choices could become shackles with the stroke of a pen, but they also spoke of hope in a way that made Lily look up, eyebrows knitted together as though piecing together a puzzle she desperately wanted to solve. Do you think it's far? She asked suddenly, breaking the spell that had cast over the car, her soft voice filled with trepidation. Thomas turned his head slightly, nodding while maintaining the intensity of his gaze on the night passing by outside. Just a little further. I promise you'll be safe, safe. The word echoed in my mind, laced thickly with doubt. How could promises of safety be woven into such a chaotic fabric of escape? I took a deep breath, trying to anchor myself in the moment, seeking to reassure the small life nestled beside me. But in that stillness, I couldn't ignore the mournful eyes of Jenny, reflecting back at me from the rearview mirror, eyes that held secrets, truths that danced just beneath the surface, concealed so deep that even she seemed unsure of their existence. The landscape blurred outside, merging into strokes of gray and black. Then a sudden flash of red lights filled the car's interior for the briefest moment, a pulse of panic that surged through me. I turned to Mrs. Collins, whose grip tightened on the steering wheel, jaw set as she fought to suppress whatever fears commandeered her heart. "Is it a cop?" I whispered, anxiety tightening my throat. "Stay calm," she replied, her features carefully neutral. "It's probably just a checkpoint. We need to be ready for anything." My heart stuttered at the notion. The unknown menacing our safe route, remnants of previous fears swelling like disturbed waters, threatened to overtake reason. And as the lights faded in our rearview mirror, their absence did little to soothe the rising tide of foreboding that consumed me. "What if they find us?" Jenny's voice broke through, trembling yet filled with an unexpected resolve. "What if this is just a momentary reprieve?" Thomas leaned in closer, gently squeezing her hand. "We're fighting for something better, Jenny. We have to believe it can be different. Whatever it takes." Lily turned her gaze from Lucky, interjecting with innocence that belied the gravity of our circumstances. "Can we really make everything okay?" Her question hung heavily in the air, weightier than any reply we could muster. I could feel each heart beat around me, each of us clinging to the fraying threads of hope while keeping the darker truths at bay. The car soon exited the main road into a cluster of side streets, dimly lit. Each turn felt deliberate, calculated, a sequence designed to elude anyone who might be following us. I had been lost in the rhythm of our escape until the hushed silence of the surroundings thickened. Each twist and turn brought the sensation of inescapable fate creeping close, as if the world conspired against our fragile sanctuary. And then we stopped. The car came to a halt, the suddenness jolting me out of my spiral of thoughts. "This is it," Mrs. Collins announced, but the weight of her words struck a hollow note within me. I blinked, squinting into the darkness that swallowed us whole, a stark contrast to the chaos we had just fled. Jenny and Thomas stepped out, the aura of them wrapping together like a familiar embrace. Meanwhile, Lily tugged at my sleeve, her eyes wide, reflecting the uncertainty swirling in the air. "Are we okay?" She breathed, and I fought against the overwhelming instinct to lie, to tell her that everything would be fine. Instead, I simply nodded, though my heart felt as if it was shattering within the confines of my chest. Just as our small group began to move toward a small building looming in the shadows, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket, a harsh reminder of the world continuing outside of our bubbles of confusion. I hesitated, heart racing, knowing who that message was likely from, the one person whose call I had dreaded most. Pressing my palm to my heart, I wrestled with the decision and finally pulled out my phone, glancing at the screen, a name that awarded my heart a timeless ache, but the message was unlike any I had anticipated. I know where you are. You can't hide from me. I'll come for you. I'll find you all. My breath hitched, the air thickening like a noose around my throat. I glanced at Lily, hearing echoes of my own heartbeat resonate with dread. A new terror coiled through me, clenching tighter with every pulse. A new reality had just emerged, shadowing us with greater peril. Mom? Lily's voice quivered, breaking through my fog of confusion. And the moment I looked into her wide eyes, so full of trust, yet blind to the storm gathering around us, I knew that we couldn't turn back now, because the truth hidden beneath the surface was no longer a distant specter, it was a churning wave poised to sweep us away. As we stepped away from the car, the chill of the night air enveloped us, and I pulled Lily closer, hoping to shield her from the harsh realities that awaited. The small building loomed over us, its presence both intimidating and strangely comforting, like an anchor in a world tipped toward chaos. Dim light flickered through a grimy window, inviting yet infused with shadows that could hide secrets of their own. Stay close, I murmured, heart racing as we approached the entrance. Mrs. Collins led the way, her posture straightening as if to assert her authority in a crumbling world. Once inside, the musty scent of neglected duty assailed our senses. The interior was dimly lit, sparsely furnished, a stark contrast to the chaotic fragments of our last few hours. A lone woman in the corner stood by an old desk, her face partially hidden by the halo of a small lamp. She lifted her gaze, a flicker of recognition flashing across her features, her expression softened as if she could sense the weight we carried. Welcome, she said, her voice steady, a calm in the storm. I'm Ava. You made it just in time. The warmth in her eyes provided an unexpected comfort, but I couldn't shake the underlying tension twisting my stomach. I introduced my family, watching as Jenny and Thomas settled near the window, their shoulders brushing together as a silent reassurance. But Lily remained by my side, her fingers digging into my arm, a tiny vice grip laden with uncertainty. Are we safe here? She asked, her voice barely a whisper, as if speaking louder might shatter the fragile solace we had found. Ava knelt down to Lily's height, her smile gentle. You are safe for tonight, sweetheart. Until we figure out the next steps. As reassurance washed over Lily, I felt a flicker of hope in my chest. Could it really be true? Could we hold the elements of safety, if only for a brief moment? But the memory of the message burned raw in my mind, igniting a trepidation that refused to be quieted. Suddenly, a loud thud from the back room startled us all. My heart battered against my ribcage as I instinctively pulled Lily behind me. What was that? I demanded, voice faltering despite my effort to project strength. Just some old storage, Ava replied quickly, though her tight smile spoke of anxiety over the unknown. We have to keep moving. I'll show you a place to rest. As we followed Ava further in, the tension between comfort and fear coiled tighter. When we reached a cramped room dimly lit by a single flickering bulb, my heart sank at the sight of makeshift bedding strewn across the floor. My adult mind wrestled against what I saw, a place so far from what I had always dreamed for my children. Is it safe? Thomas asked, scanning the room with wary eyes, as if the walls themselves held the answer. For now, Ava reassured, glancing over her shoulder as if listening for something unseen. We're hidden well enough. As I settled Lily onto a thin mattress, her face blossomed with curiosity at the making of this new world around us. Do you think we'll have a home here? She asked softly, tilting her head to catch my eye. That innocent question echoed through the air and hit me like a freight train. I wanted to answer her with unwavering strength, to paint this place in colors of hope, but the doubt hung heavy in my throat. Instead, I replied, do you remember that time we built a fort in the living room? Maybe we can build something just like that here, all together. A small smile crept across her face, as if my words were a balm against her unvoiced fears. But just as I began to find my footing again, a new sound slithered through the silence, the grinding creak of the front door swinging open wide. Ava's face paled in an instant, mirroring my unrestrained panic. A figure emerged, shrouded in darkness, and my pulse quickened. "Do you think you can escape me?" A voice mocked, smooth and menacing, echoing through the room like a thunderclap. "I've come to collect what's mine," every ounce of hope drained from my body, replaced by ice-cold dread. I instinctively stepped in front of Lily, shielding her with my entire being, but my mind raced as I tried to comprehend the threat before us. In that split second, every fear came crashing down: the lies, the confines, the shackles that had threatened to ensnare us further. And as I looked into that shadow, I realized that this nightmare was only the beginning. A revelation pulled me into dark depths. The uncertainty I had clung to, the demons I had tucked away, were no longer solely my burden. They had come for us all, and escape was nothing but a fleeting dream. The air felt electric, charged with fear and uncertainty as we stood in the dim light of the makeshift shelter. I could barely breathe, my heart pounding with a desperation that coursed through me like a storm. My instincts spoke louder than words, urging me to protect my daughter at all costs. But as I faced the dark figure standing at the entrance, cloaked in shadow and dripping malice, a frantic heaviness weighed down on my soul. "You think hiding will save you?" The figure's voice sliced through the air, carrying in it a sense of ownership that made my blood run cold. As recognition settled over me, an icy knot formed in the pit of my stomach. This wasn't just an external threat, it was the embodiment of my worst fears come to life. "Get behind me, Lily!" I shouted, frantically pushing her back against the wall, the softness of her small frame contrasting sharply with the looming chaos that enveloped us. In a heartbeat, I felt the warmth of her body shiver with dread. But I couldn't let fear take root in her heart. "Not now. Not ever. You're all so naive." He stepped forward, the flickering light revealing his face twisted by contempt, a face that cut through me like a knife. It was someone I never wanted to see again, someone who understood my vulnerabilities far too well. My former partner, Daniel. The walls we had built around ourselves now felt paper thin, ready to collapse at any moment. "Stay where you are!" I screamed, my voice reverberating off the walls, the desperation in my tone betraying how precarious our situation truly was. My mind raced. How had he found us? How had he tracked us down through the jumbled maze of pain and uncertainty we had managed to create? This was not merely an unwanted reunion, it was a reckoning. "Let her go. You have no claim here," I demanded, my voice shaking yet resolute. The memories of everything I had fought for crashed over me like waves, an exhausting torrent of love and sacrifice that poured into this moment. "She is my daughter, and you will not take her from me. You have no right." But even as I bellowed those words, I felt the tremor in my heart. The hurt that had simmered beneath the surface since our separation gnawed at the edges of my resolve, whispering doubts I had battled for so long. In the depths of my despair, there was always the question, was I enough? Did I truly have the strength to face him now? Daniel laughed, a bitter, empty sound that echoed through the room, empty of warmth and filled only with menace. "You think you've played house here?" He laughed again, a mirthless chuckle that made my skin crawl. "You're just delaying the inevitable. I will reclaim what's mine." "Not today," I shouted, refusing to back down, though every sinew in my body yearned to flee. "You've lost your right to any of us." I could feel Maria beside me, a steady presence that anchored me to the ground. It was as if, in that moment, she had returned as my partner, not just my maid. We could face this together. With lithe determination, Maria stepped up beside me. "Your presence here is unwanted, Daniel. Just leave. You don't have to do this. You can walk away." For the briefest of seconds, uncertainty danced across his features, and I thought perhaps my words might find a crack in his facade, a hint of the man I once knew buried beneath the anger. But it vanished instantly, replaced by a storm of fury. "You think you can stand against me? Against what I've built? You're nothing without me." His eyes darted to Lily, who remained huddled behind me, doing her best to be brave but betrayed by the tremor in her small frame. "This is all your fault," he snapped, anger twisting his voice. You should have remained in the cage I built for you. My heart cracked at his words, the reminder of a life spent living in fear and silence, cloaked in his shadow. But not anymore. You don't have that power over me anymore, I declared, my voice rising from the depths of rage and defiance. I broke free, and this time, I fight for my daughter, our lives, against someone who believes he has a claim. In that moment, a raw strength awakened inside me. Ignited by the very thing that once threatened to break me. Every moment of struggle, every night spent yearning for peace, every laugh shared with Lily, it surged through me like fire, bolstering my resolve. I wouldn't let him snatch that away. You think love is a cage? I would build my own with kindness and compassion if that's what it takes, I said, finding my footing amidst fear and darkness. We will not let you take anything from us again. Daniel paused, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. For a heartbeat, the shadows seemed to shatter, revealing someone who, beneath the facade of cruelty, was still a broken man. This isn't just about you, he spat, voice cracking as if he struggled against something unseen. You think you hold any power here? I do, I countered. I hold everything in this room. And that includes my daughter, not your possessions, not your pain. The weight of those words anchored me, a light breaking through the encroaching darkness that had seemed poised to swallow us whole. Jenny stood silently behind us, and though she was a stranger, her spirit resonated with understanding. It became clearer that pain could forge connections far more powerful than fear or ownership. In every heartbeat, I knew this moment wasn't just about saving my family, it was about standing for every scar faced, every wound earned, and rising together in the face of that darkness. Leave us, I reiterated, my voice steady, filled with compassion and resolve. You had your chance, and you wasted it. In building a life for Lily that you would only destroy. You don't belong here. At that, he hesitated, his bravado crumbling under the weight of realization. The tension crackled between us, fear clashing with unwavering courage, and as he looked at Lily, something seemingly shifted within him. The shadows on his face flickered for a moment, revealing a vulnerability I never thought he could display. Then, almost painfully, he turned, retreating into the night from whence he'd come, a shadow slipping away, his silhouette disappearing into the inky depths of despair and defeat that I exhaled, the air rushing from my lungs as relief cascaded through me. But it wasn't just relief, it was the weight of recognition, the understanding that though the fight might not be over, I had stood strong. In forging that space with love and courage, I had taken the first step toward healing, toward rebuilding the life I had always wanted for Lily. Mom? Lily's voice broke through, soft and uncertain but filled with a new glimmer of hope. I turned to her, kneeling down to her level as I cradled her small face in my hands. Are we okay now? Yes, I whispered, heart filled with warmth. We're okay. Together. As Maria joined us, kneeling beside Lily, I felt the weight of acceptance gently cradle me, a new family, a new chance to rebuild with love as the foundation, despite the scars of our past. In that moment, I knew I had fought a battle and won. We were no longer just survivors, we were warriors emerging from the depths of adversity, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, united in a way I had never imagined. Together, I affirmed, planting a soft kiss on Lily's forehead. Always, the echoes of resolve reverberated in the space around us, casting light into the shadows. As I looked around, each face mirrored the very heart of resilience we shared. Lucky too, Lily exclaimed, scooping up the puppy who wagged his tail, blissfully unaware of the chaos that had just unfolded, embodying the very essence of hope. And in that small appliance of laughter, a promise hung in the air. Despite the darkness that had threatened us, despite shadows that tricked us into doubt, love would remain our greatest shield. Together, we would navigate this newly forged path forward. And as the door shut behind us, as the past receded into an echo, I looked into my daughter's trusting eyes and whispered softly, "We're just beginning, sweetheart. Just beginning." And with that declaration, I knew that while the journey ahead would not be devoid of challenges, we would face every single one with strength, love, and togetherness. Moments later, standing within the confines of our beginnings anew, the final whispers of darkness faded into distant memories. As I held Lily close, I finally tasted what it meant to be free, because in that moment, illuminated with love and shared strength, I realized we had found our way back to something infinitely more profound than survival. We were home.